The story centers around Emma Woodhouse, the main character, who is an heiress living with her widowed father at their estate called Hartfield. Emma is known for her beauty and intelligence, but she is somewhat underutilized in the small village of Highbury. She takes great pride in her matchmaking abilities. Unlike other women her age, Emma doesn't need to marry for financial reasons because she already has a fortune. At the beginning of the novel, Emma's governess, Miss Taylor, gets married to Mr. Weston, a wealthy man who owns a nearby estate called Randall's. With Miss Taylor now married, Emma feels lonely and decides to take an interest in Harriet Smith, an orphan who lives at a nearby boarding school and knows nothing about her parents. Emma assumes that Harriet's father must have been a gentleman and begins advising Harriet on many aspects of her life, including the company she keeps. Emma suggests that Harriet should stop spending time with the Mardens, a family of farmers, because Robert Marden, their son, has shown interest in Harriet. Instead, Emma plans to set Harriet up with Mr. Elton, the vicar of the church in Highbury. Emma believes she can use her matchmaking skills to ensure a good match for Harriet, despite Harriet's own feelings or the suitability of the match. The friendship between Emma and Harriet does little good for either of them, a fact that Mr. Knightley, a neighbor and old friend, quickly notices. Harriet encourages Emma's worst qualities, allowing her to meddle and flattering her. In turn, Emma fills Harriet with grand ideas that do not match her low social status. When Robert Marden proposes to Harriet, she rejects him based on Emma's advice, thinking he is too common for her. Mr. Knightley criticizes Emma's matchmaking efforts, as he believes Robert Marden is superior to Harriet. He is respectable, while she comes from uncertain origins. Emma's sister, Isabella, and her husband, Mr. John Knightley, visit Highbury, and Emma uses their visit to make peace with Mr. Knightley after their disagreement over Harriet. Despite this, Emma still believes that Mr. Elton is a much better match for Harriet than Robert Marden. Initially, Emma appears to have some success in her efforts to bring Harriet and Mr. Elton together. The three of them spend a lot of leisure time together, and Mr. Elton seems to be open to all of Emma's suggestions. However, when Harriet is unable to attend the Westons' Christmas Eve party, Mr. Elton shifts his attention entirely to Emma. On their carriage ride home from the party, Mr. Elton declares his love for Emma and dismisses the notion that he would ever consider marrying Harriet. Mr. Elton's main interest in Emma lies in her social status and wealth, as he aims to improve his position in society. Emma promptly rejects his advances, which deeply offends Mr. Elton. In response, he quickly leaves Highbury and goes to stay in Bath. Emma is shocked by how poorly she judged the situation, realizing that she was wrong to believe Mr. Elton would be a good match for Harriet. She begins to see that Mr. Knightley might have been right in some of his advice, but she still isn't convinced that Harriet should lower herself by associating with Robert Marden. After Mr. Elton leaves, Emma has the difficult task of breaking the news to a heartbroken Harriet. The village of Highbury eagerly anticipates the visit of Frank Churchill, Mr. Weston's son from his first marriage. After his wife died, Mr. Weston sent Frank to be raised by her family, as he lacked the means to provide for him. Frank is considered an ideal match for Emma, and although she has not yet met him, Emma agrees that his age and upbringing make him a suitable suitor for her. Another character who occupies Emma's thoughts is Jane Fairfax, the granddaughter of Mrs. Bates, the widow of the former vicar, and the niece of Miss Bates, a talkative spinster who lives with her mother. Jane is Emma's equal in beauty, education, and talents, but not in social status, which provokes some jealousy in Emma. Jane is soon to visit Highbury because the wealthy family that raised her after her parents' death has gone on vacation. Meanwhile, Mr. Elton returns from Bath with the news that he is engaged to Miss Augusta Hawkins. This news, combined with an awkward encounter with the Mardens, causes great embarrassment for poor Harriet. Frank Churchill finally visits the Westons, and Emma is pleased to find that he lives up to her expectations. They begin to spend time together, but Emma notices that Frank seems somewhat insubstantial and immature. He even makes a day trip to London just to get his hair cut, an act that Emma admits is superficial. As Frank and Emma spend more time together, Mr. Knightley becomes somewhat jealous. He disapproves of Frank, believing him to be untrustworthy, especially with Emma's heart. At the same time, Emma starts to feel jealous herself, suspecting that Mr. Knightley might be in love with Jane Fairfax. Emma's friendship with Frank Churchill is strengthened by their shared disdain for Jane Fairfax. Frank fuels Emma's suspicions by suggesting that Jane might be involved with Mr. Dixon, a married man, although this is merely idle gossip. Shortly after, Jane Fairfax receives a pianoforte from London, and Emma and Frank jump to the conclusion that it was sent to her by Mr. Dixon. Mr. Elton returns to Highbury with his new wife, who is a shallow name-dropper. She constantly compares everything to the supposedly grand lifestyle of her relatives and addresses the people in Highbury with an alarming lack of formality. Emma instantly dislikes her, and upon realizing this, Mrs. Elton reciprocates the dislike. When Frank Churchill returns, he and Emma sponsor a ball at the Crown Inn. Although it is generally assumed that Frank and Emma are forming an attachment, Emma has already stopped considering Frank as a suitor for herself and sees him as a potential match for Harriet. During the ball, Mr. Elton humiliates Harriet by openly snubbing her in front of the other guests. Mr. Knightley graciously steps in to dance with Harriet, countering Mr. Elton's social slight. The next day, while walking home, Harriet is attacked by a group of gypsy beggars, but Frank Churchill comes to her rescue. His heroic act becomes the talk of Highbury and strengthens Emma's belief that he would be a suitable match for Harriet. During their discussion of the event, Harriet confesses that she has feelings for the man who saved her, although she does not explicitly mention Frank Churchill by name. Thanks to this newfound infatuation, Harriet is finally able to move past her heartbreak over Mr. Elton. Mr. Knightley starts to suspect that Frank Churchill has a hidden relationship with Jane Fairfax, but Emma dismisses his concerns and continues to flirt with Frank. During an outing at Box Hill, Frank's negative influence on Emma becomes evident when she insults Miss Bates to her face. Later, Mr. Knightley sternly rebukes Emma for her behavior. When Emma visits Miss Bates to apologize, she realizes the extent of the damage her insult has caused to her relationship with the family. After his aunt's death, Frank is finally free to reveal his secret engagement to Jane Fairfax. The engagement had to remain hidden due to his aunt's disapproval and her threat to disinherit him if he made a poor match. Frank's flirtatious behavior towards Emma turns out to be a tactic to divert attention from his true feelings for Jane. When Emma tries to break the news of Frank's engagement to Harriet, she discovers that Harriet is actually in love with Mr. Knightley, who had rescued her at the Crown Inn ball. With Harriet's confession, Emma realizes that she is in love with Mr. Knightley herself. Emma comes to the painful realization that not only has she caused her friend yet another heartbreak, but she has also misled Harriet into believing she could aspire to a higher social status. Mr. Knightley soon declares his love for Emma, and they make plans to marry. However, two obstacles stand in their way. First, Emma would have to leave her father, who would struggle with the separation, and second, she must break the news to Harriet. To ease Mr. Woodhouse's fears of being left alone, Mr. Knightley decides to move into Hartfield after their marriage. Surprisingly, Harriet takes the news about Mr. Knightley well and soon reunites with Robert Marden. The novel concludes with 3 marriages: Robert Marden and Harriet, Frank Churchill and Jane Fairfax, and finally, Mr. Knightley. And thank you so much for watching this video. Do not forget to like, share and subscribe to our channel.